Hi, and welcome to this edition of the Insurance Experts. It's my pleasure to have on the line Regina Wagner. Regina is a long-term care specialist. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Mark, for having me here this morning.
Okay, so how did you get into the long-term care space? That's kind of a unique path in the insurance business.
Yes, it is. Uh, First, getting into the industry with my financial licenses and background, helping individuals and business owners in the banking industry how to accomplish their financial goals. And over the years, we saw how quickly a long term care event could erode those assets that they've worked so hard building.
Okay, so how long have you been specifically doing long-term care as kind of your specialty?
A little bit over 10 years was the
Wow.
first time that I sold a long term care policy. Didn't know what I was doing, but the need was there. In fact, the very first time I sold a long term care policy, the client asked for it.
Interesting. Yeah, and that's oftentimes what we hear about. Clients have personal experiences with it. They bring it to their advisor, and all of a sudden they have to learn this marketplace, which is very unique in terms of the planning process. But it's great that you've been doing it for 10 years now and now have that expertise to provide to other people. So I wanted to ask you
Absolutely.
first, what's your personal experience? I know you had mentioned that to me, and that's one of the reasons you're dedicated and motivated in this industry.
Absolutely. Not too many years after my first policy that I wrote, my mother had to take care of my grandmother. And so she was, again, one of those people that saw the need. And I sold her a policy 3 years before being diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
Mm,
Over the years, I don't know what my family and I would have done without it. It allowed us to bring care into the home. It allowed us to provide care in multiple settings. So it literally changed my world. And I love making a difference to help other people do the same.
wow. And how much in terms of benefits do you think she got out of that over the years?
Oh, wow. I actually did the numbers not too long ago, and that policy paid close to $300,000 to our family over probably a period of about, I guess it would probably be about 7 years.
Wow, wow. So, in terms of net worth and things like that, did your
Mhm.
mom had a lot of assets that she was protecting, or what type of policy did she buy originally?
My mother and father worked all their life making just a regular salary. However, they did have some savings. It wasn't significant, but they had some savings, and they wanted to be in a position to leave some for my brothers and sisters. But having had an experience with my mother taking care of my grandmother, she knew more was going to be needed.
I think the number one question we get is, can long-term care insurance be affordable? And I do find that it can be quite affordable. What would you say is the most common myth that you run into? Is it similar to that?
Absolutely. I hear one of two things. I hear that it's too expensive. And the reason a lot of people say that it's expensive is because when you're brand new, which
Mhm.
I was many, many years ago, um, the mistake new agents with very little or no experience make is they try to put together a plan with all the bells and whistles. And I don't want to go into those features, but
Mhm.
because in some cases it's going to be important, whereas it's not as important for another person.
Mhm.
But that's a big mistake, and it will make it pretty cost prohibitive. So the most important thing is to build, customize a plan that is going to fit the individual, the couple's needs, so that they can keep it going should and when that event occurs.
Right. And I know you told me about a recent story about a client that kind of came to you looking for all the bells and whistles. Can you tell us a little bit about that
Yeah,
client?
absolutely. With all the bells and whistles, it ended up being probably close to or just right under $500 a month.
Mhm.
And when we start really getting into, there's a session that I have with clients where I'm asking them a ton of questions. Some of
Mhm.
these questions are very personal. These are questions like, for example, if something was to happen to you right now, you become too sick, too hurt, or you get up in age and you just can't take care of yourself. What's the plan today? I really walk them through the process of what would happen. And so when you start gathering the information, you're looking at their savings, you're looking at what they want their assets to do. I was able to customize and build a plan around a very comfortable budget, bringing that premium or that cost down to approximately $125 a month.
Okay, and I think a lot of people are surprised to hear that, right? They've heard long-term care might be
Yes,
expensive, and all of a sudden you're building a plan. And it really just depends on, like you said, all the bells and whistles, how much in terms of benefits are you buying, but you have to assess the
how
person's
long you wait,
financials. Yep, yep, exactly.
correct. A lot of
Now,
people don't realize that the shorter you wait to receive your benefits, it's going to cost more for that plan. But if you can stand to wait a little longer before receiving those benefits, that bring the cost down.
right, especially if you plan when you're younger and you have inflation protection on the policy and those type of features too.
Yes.
Now, you mentioned this client also was married. Tell us a little bit about the client's spouse and his situation.
Yes, and we run into that a lot. But for some reason, couples they want to purchase a long term care plan for both of them, or they don't want one at all. They're like, well, if we can't get one for both of us, then forget it. That's the wrong way to think about it. My own personal experience with my mother and father, dad couldn't qualify for long term care insurance, but mom could. And at going through the whole experience, when you bring care into the home, the other spouse who should have had a policy actually got to benefit from it. So I was able to share that experience and have done so with many of my clients that, listen, having something is better than nothing. And we also put an alternative plan in place for him. It wasn't as big and robust as an original traditional plan. However, it was an alternative plan. And again, something is better than nothing.
Wow. Well, thanks for joining us today, and we hope to have you on future episodes of The Insurance Experts. Really appreciate you sharing your expertise.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it.